Ray Tallis, on a recent Desert Island Discs, you were described as a physician, a philosopher, a poet and a novelist. You're also a professor of geriatric medicine. You describe your writing as unwrapping the miracle of everyday life. I want to ask how this passion for life and poetry that you have is balanced with your campaign also for assisted dying.
Well, I think death is an inescapable part of life. And as a philosopher, I feel very strongly that living well and dying well are inseparable. And so I'm very concerned that not only do people live well, live healthily, live long lives, but also that their deaths are good deaths.
In October 2002, you became chairman of the Royal College of Physicians Ethics Committee. And your job, along with other members, was to look at the assisted dying legislation. You changed your mind after some research, and I'm just wondering, can you tell me how that happened?
We thought, first of all, that assisted dying wouldn't be necessary if there was universally available good palliative care. We also feared that making assisted dying available would prevent palliative care from developing, and there's an awful lot of development necessary in palliative care in the UK. We were also concerned it might break down the trust between patients and doctors. And we were concerned also that there might be a slippery slope, that this legislation would be the beginning of a process which would extend assisted dying beyond that very small group of people for whom it was envisaged. And for all of those reasons, we therefore oppose the bill. However, we looked again and thought again about this, and I felt there was sufficient information. As it turned out, every single one of those assumptions, which are factual assumptions or empirical assumptions, were actually wrong. Because, of course, there's plenty of data from other countries to test these assumptions. If you look at other countries which have assisted dying, first of all, they also have excellent palliative care services. Some of them put our own palliative care services to shame. Secondly, the development of palliative care has actually been promoted and driven by the availability of legislation regarding assisted dying, which doesn't surprise me, because it's all part of taking the process of dying seriously and thinking seriously about the care of people at the end of their lives. Thirdly, there was no breakdown of trust between doctors and patients. Holland came out top in a survey of European countries in relation to the issue of trust in doctors. And again, that doesn't surprise me. If you know your doctor is not going to abandon you in your hour of greatest need, if you know he or she is going to discuss with you in a frank and honest way every aspect of your care, particularly towards the end of life, then of course you're going to trust the doctor. So all of these reasons for being anxious about the assisted dying bill turned out to be ill-founded. But there was another reason, I think, why at least some of us on the committee changed our mind, in particular myself, and that was at first we thought legislation was unnecessary. It was far better to do these things in relation to clinical judgment. But actually, I think we all came to the conclusion that particularly in the current climate, legislation is essential, both for the safety of patients and for the safety of doctors. And that's why we revisited this issue, and sufficient numbers of members of the committee changed their mind for us to decide that our position on the bill should be neutral. As doctors, we would hopefully provide useful advice in drawing up any code of practice that might be necessary in the wake of enactment of the bill, but otherwise we would simply give opinions as members of society as a whole, but not as doctors on the ethical aspect of the assisted dying bill.
It seems to me that dignity in dying is not something that is easily understood. It's not always pain that causes people to want to end their lives earlier. There's a loss of dignity as well. And I wonder, from your experience, if you could explain what that loss of dignity can mean.
I can give examples from my medical experience about what a loss of dignity means. It goes way beyond pain, which is the thing that people tend to focus on. It extends even beyond symptoms such as nausea or uncontrollable or unbearable shortness of breath. It goes into loss of continence, the ability to control one's bladder and one's bowels. Worse still, the sense of total disintegration. Often people will have enormous ulcers which with the best nursing and medical care cannot be controlled. There will be a sense of complete loss of control, a complete loss of independence, and a gathering sense of pointless suffering. And that really is what the term loss of dignity means. As I say, it goes beyond symptoms narrowly construed.
For a lot of people who are facing the end of their lives in extreme pain, the only option is suicide, and that can just go horribly wrong, can't it?
It seems to me suicide is not an option for people who have terminal illness. First of all, it represents abandonment by the medical profession. That therapeutic alliance, which we hope continues to the end of an individual's life, seems to have been abandoned if an individual is left to commit suicide to sort out their problems. And of course, many people don't have the knowledge of how to commit suicide. The result is appalling botched suicides, which add to the suffering not only of the patient, but also those who support them and love them.
Of course, there is another option, isn't there, for those, firstly, that can afford it, and also who are physically able to travel, and that's to go to Switzerland, where it's legal to assist someone dying, and you can get a prescription for medication to help you die.
To me, the idea that you have to travel abroad to seek assistance in death is totally unacceptable. And in many ways, the grim pilgrimages that people have to Switzerland and elsewhere simply highlight the cruelty of the present law.